This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 729, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you who are washing their hands and staying safe.
And if not, we'll find you.
Hello, welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week episode 729. My name is Connor Kilpatrick. I am here with Josh Flanagan.
Hi.
Can't shake him.
No.
Been trying. Can't do it.
He hasn't been trying that hard. If anything,
Like the Terminator. You're like the Terminator robot.
Very slow,
Yeah.
not super determined.
Not fast running.
No. And I'm not in a hurry. We'll get to it. I'll not let you get rid of me.
Josh, why aren't you running faster? Do you see him running faster? We are iFanboy, and normally we read our comics, talk about those, and have fun, but nothing's normal. There are hardly any comics coming out for now, and so we're rolling with whatever happens week to week, and slowly the show becomes the G.I. Joe recap show. So, here's your spoiler warning, which we forgot to do on the Media Splode. There'll be spoilers. Exercise some caution. Josh.
That's me.
You had the pick, and I'm really happy you picked this one because I love it, and I'd forgotten about it, and thank you.
You're very welcome. The pick of the week is the Golden Age, or now as it's called, the JSA Golden Age.
Right, it's been rebranded.
Yes, of course. Is it under Black Label? I didn't notice that. God, I hope not.
It's got to be because it's an Elseworlds book, so.
It's just, I think that the Black Label as just a word is, I don't like it.
Can I say that this past week finally the Day Tripper Absolute Edition showed up on my doorstep, with a big old Black Label stamp on it.
Yep. I mean,
I was like, oh.
I'm not gonna let it ruin my day.
No, but it's just annoying for 5 seconds.
This copy, and I'm looking at the digital one, is the JSA Golden Age Deluxe Edition, and it actually does not say Black Label on it anywhere because it may have come out before that.
Possibly.
Yeah. So this was a comic book story, again, written by James Robinson, with art by Paul Smith, colors by Paul Orey, and letters by John Costanza. This one came out in '93. It was 4 large-size issues. I assume they were prestige. I wasn't reading.
They were, yeah, I have, first of all, Richard Orey on colors.
Sorry.
Yeah, it came out, there were 48-page, 4 issues, 48 pages each, and they were, those Elseworlds hard-bound, square-bound, hard coverage. I had them. That's why I read it originally. So was this pre Starman?
Starman started in '94, so I think that either the
year before.
They were born at the same time, and one sort of led into the other, or as he was working on this, spent a little time with Starman and got an idea, and then moved on to that. I don't really know, but yeah, that's the order. This is '93.
Well, considering
how '94.
How long it takes to develop these things, he probably had the pitches to get. Who knows? We're speculating, but
maybe this was successful and that let the other one go. Who knows?
Sure.
We were in high school. I was not reading comics at this point. I read it later. Now I read it. I've read it. I've been aware of it for a long time. So I read it quite a while ago. We did a video show. We used to do these. Were they Vault? Is that what we called them?
From the Vault,
where we would each pick the 3 of us would each pick one graphic novel, trade story, something like that, and talk about it. And we did, oddly enough, we did an episode that had this book and Day Tripper on the same episode back in 2011. So yes, we've talked about it.
We'll link to that. We'll link to that one in the show notes, so you can go check it out if you want to see some art from this book as well.
So,
but I'm just really happy because, for such a long time in our reading experience, the JSA was a big part of it, especially the early days of this show. And for me, I read this book when it came out in '93 because I was a big JSA fan. At the same time, I think we also had the Mike Parabek drawn JSA 12-issue series that was happening. So I saw these guys on the cover and I was like, ooh, what's this? And picked it up. It's been such a long time since these characters have been any kind of factor in the DCU. They got written out with the New 52 launched, and they got a half-hearted Earth 2 book that James Robinson wrote, but it wasn't really the JSA. And they showed up recently in Scott Snyder's Justice League as an alternate Earth situation characters. But really, as a force in the DCU, they've been gone now for almost 10 years. And so it was nice to be back with them. Even if this is an Elseworlds version of them, this is not in continuity with DCU at the time. it's not it's in many ways it's the classic JSA. In some ways it's a little different.
Well, I was going to say, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I'm not really into JSA or I don't know anything about them or can I read it? This is a 100% standalone story. There are characters that you recognize in it. They're in the JSA, but this is a standalone story. Which
was strange because in the title page, it has an image from the modern day Jeff Johns, James Robinson JSA book. If you look on your digital reader at page 3, that's from that early JSA book. You can see Starman. You can see the new Starman there, and the new Hawk Girl and Star Girl.
Yep, you're right.
It's weird. I was very confused. I was like, wait, what?
So, like we said, about a 200-page story. One of the ways that we pick these out is we look for something that you could get digitally, that you could find that's still around, that we can also read. And I came upon it, and I thought, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about this in a while. And pretty instantly, I mean, a couple of pages in, I was like, wow, this is good. I mean, like, and I know we say that a lot, but in terms of sort of just a standalone superhero story that is very much influenced by Watchmen, but without quite so bleak an outlook, I think. Is that fair, would you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just the sort of mature approach to storytelling using these characters and really treading the line between being almost too dense and being, keeping you into it, if that makes sense. Because it feels like you should know a lot about what's going on, but you don't really have to. You have to pick it up as you're going on, which is a Watchmen thing for sure.
Yeah, he definitely unspools details as you go. And if you have an understanding of the JSA, it helps a little. But even then, it's different enough where you have to learn things as you go.
Yeah, we're not new at this. And by the end, I was like, oh, wait a minute, because there are a lot of blonde dudes. There's two
of blonde dudes.
Two of the main characters are both named John. We're both married to the same woman and look exactly the same. And I was like, that's a bit too much there. This is drawn by Paul Smith.
Legendary Paul Smith.
Yeah, no, and I know that, but I don't think that I've actually read a ton of his actual work. And I tend to think of it, when you say Paul Smith in my mind, I tend to think of an Alan Davis type, and it's not that. He was on X-Men for a long time, and I know that a great number of artists who I respect are really into that and find that very influential. But man, what a sort of timeless, modern and retro art style at the same time. And then just Richard Orion, the colors are wonderful. I don't know if I've ever seen a book colored this well from like this early. I mean, Dark Knight Returns notwithstanding or something like that, but man, it's beautiful color palette.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Smith. I think he's. It's been a while since I read From the Ashes, which is his famous X-Men story. I think that's the one. Don't quote me on it. But it's been a while since I read it. I remember it was the copy Ron gave me, and it immediately fell apart. Yeah. I had to buy him a new one. I just kind of felt guilty. He didn't tell me to. I just felt really guilty, so I sent him a new one. I think he's doing a slightly different style here. I think he's doing a style that sort of recalls the Golden Age. This is called the Golden Age for a reason, and we're going to get into the story in a second. But I think he's doing a style here that would not necessarily be 100% out of place with early Bob Kane, Joe Shuster, that kind of thing. It's not out of the realm. It recalls those styles while still being modern for 1993. It doesn't look like a 93 comic when you think of like Image or X-Men comics at the time, Jim Lee. This is not the art style at all what was happening.
I really I started reading and I was like, wait, when did this come out? And I mean, it was like 10 years earlier than I assumed. And then as I kept reading, I went, wait, 93? Like, it really is timeless in a big way. It's very, like, you could read this today and like if you went and picked it up in a comic book store and it said 2016 on it, you wouldn't.
Oh, for sure. You wouldn't bat an eye.
Beat. However,
you wouldn't bat an eye 2006, 2016. I mean, it doesn't. Yeah. 86.
So here's the story. It is after World War II. It is a world where there are superheroes. Many of them went to fight in the war, but they were negated by a Nazi superpowered character who basically negates all their powers. So for the most part, the heroes went home because they weren't any use in war. After the war takes over...
that was what they had to, why didn't because those comics were coming out in the 40s. So why didn't the heroes just go over and beat Hitler? Because they had to come up with the reason why, and this was the reason in this book was there was a paraffin or parasol. The character's name, the Nazi character's name was kind of stupid, but
go ahead, you talk, I'll find it.
He disabled the heroes who had powers, so only the ones who were non-powered, your Batmans of the era, could go in undercover to fight. Like Green Lantern couldn't go, the Flash couldn't go, Dr. Fate couldn't go, Hawkman, because their powers were negated and they got all fucked up. So they went back home and protected the homeland, while other characters, lower tier characters, went and fought the war.
Boy, there are some real turns of phrase in here that are quite, like, this really beautiful writing. And there's a bit where all of this takes place in parallel with our world in terms of sort of the global problems, Red Scare, nuclear proliferation, et cetera, et cetera. And at one point, Johnny Quick, I think, I'm guessing on a lot of this, but Johnny Quick goes to see Alan Scott. Alan Scott is the one guy who has given up everything. He runs a radio empire. He's this big guy, and he's the Superman, more or less, in this story. He's the super powerful one. And he says this bit, where he's like, well, why don't you put that ring back on? Why don't you help? And he's just like, you know how much power I have? I could the atom bomb, I could do that in a second if I decided to. And I have no right to that power. And I have no right to choose it because men shouldn't have that right. And it really, A, was interesting as hell, and it really, parallels the sort of nuclear problem. But B, like, he's taking this moral stand that I love. He's like, I shouldn't be able to make this choice. You'd think, like, if Superman had that choice, he probably thinks about that. It also set the tone for, like, who the big dog in this is. So that when, this is no spoiler so much, but when he does put the ring on, I know, Chekhov's gun, it's a big deal. And then what happens after that is also affected by it. It's beautiful structure.
It's important to note that part of, not Alan Scott, but the part about the heroes having to retire was added to the DC continuity. I don't know when it was added, but it was part of DC continuity way back into the 80s. I think it was in the post-crisis world in which it was decided that the Justice Society existed in the 40s, and then they had to go away in the 50s because of the HUAC trials, and everybody wanted them to unmask, and so they retired, and that was the in-continuity explanation for why they disappeared. So that's touched upon here. He does a really good job of taking a lot of this elements from continuity in the past and making all this work together. But the thrust of the story is Tex Thompson, the Americommando, was the main hero who was like a sea-level hero at home. He went undercover and supposedly killed the Nazi superhero that negated the powers. Supposedly killed Hitler. Killed Hitler. Killed everyone who was basically fucking everything. Parsifal. That was it.
Otto Frentz.
And so this story ends up becoming about almost the side characters. I mean, this is a Justice Society story with basically no Jay Garrick in it. Mm-hmm. Alan Scott is, as Josh said, he shows up at the end, the beginning. He's in the whole story, but he's not really a main thrust of the hero part. It's basically Johnny Quick, the Atom, the fat guy who I didn't even know was a character.
I'm like, I didn't know all of them, but I bet all these are real. I don't see him making somebody up for this, but that's the kind of stuff we had back then.
But it's mostly about these side guys, the sort of the B and C level Justice Society members. Hawkman has a major role a little bit towards the end, but Jay Garrick.
I love beginning, and he's never seen out, dude. Like, he shows up and he's like, "I've gotten a little into my Egyptian thing." It's like, no, you're insane.
Our man, although he's a higher tier character, but so this guy returns home to a ticker tape parade because he helped win the war, and he becomes a senator. And he's eyeing the presidency, and he's going to put together his own team of heroes who are the American heroes, and they're going to root out communism and protect the country from Russia, and they're also going to expose the JSA, the old members. And so you get this sort of darkness happening over the country as it was happening in real life in the 50s. And the mystery becomes, who is this guy really, and why is he doing what he's doing? Because there's clearly nefarious purposes behind this team he's creating. And it was about a quarter of the way through, I was like, oh, right, somebody in this book is really Hitler. I remember that from reading it. It had been like 10, 15 years since I'd read it, or however long since we did that video show.
I knew that from the beginning, but I didn't remember anything else about it. And to be fair, it wasn't quite as big a deal as I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It was part of the story, but it was not the story. Like, ironically, Hitler wasn't the big bad.
Right.
In a way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and so the main character who was on the cover of the original issue and the original collection was a sidekick, Dynamite or something like that. Dynaman. He was Dynakid. He became Dynaman here. Who he was. They did some, they got some post-war Nazi scientists experimenting on him here, and he becomes this super powerful Superman-esque character who can't be beaten. His fists are like atom bombs, and he's invulnerable as long as he doesn't get tired, but he never gets tired, which is, you should wait for him to get tired if you read that early on the story. So he's got this invulnerable Superman-esque character. He is running things behind the scenes, this Americommando character, and then they've got the first version of Robot Man. Then they get the Atom, who was, in this story, more of the runt of the team. He wasn't as much of a team, so he felt resentful of the JSA, so he's part of this. And so he's got these guys sort of running things while the rest of the JSA members are either going insane, like Ted Knight, Starman, or running their empire, like Alan Scott, or making documentaries, like Ken Burns, Johnny Quick. And
can I just say, I love his math formula that lets him start to run. I love it. I love it. It's that's the best one. It's like, it's so much better than like hard water or whatever. He's just like, he does a little physics math. Oh,
yes. And so this is the Watchmen part where there's this mystery that's unfolding as what is this guy's plan? What is he doing? They keep showing us darker layers to him and his team, and one of them's on cocaine, and the other guy's has really angry sex with Miss America, and then finally, it's all revealed, and the JSA has to sort of come back together to defeat them in this really violent fight at the end in Washington, where a lot of the characters just get fucking wrecked.
It's funny because that wasn't the part that I was thinking of in terms of Watchmen. I was thinking just the tone and the way a lot of it's laid out through captions voiceover, basically, is like the internal monologues of people and just, I don't know, the pacing, all that. But you're absolutely right about that. I think that if you psychologically, it kind of reminds me of Identity Crisis.
I mean, it makes Johnny Quick kind of the Rorschach, right? Because he sees that he suspects something else is going on, and he's sort of the main narrator, and he's the one going around trying to figure out what's happening and investigating and trying to get allies together. He's sort of the Rorschach character. I also really like the side story about Our Man and his addiction, and that was interesting too. There's just a lot going on here.
I mean, one of the things that's really cool about it is that, again, in that modern sense, like this isn't like giving away the end, but they said there'd be spoilers, but like this story takes place and then the characters keep going on, because as the story ends up, you sort of see that, like, it's not quite like the end of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but people are still dealing with the same stuff and the aftermath. It's not like everything's cool at the end. And I dig that. It's funny because Starman is in this, and I kept I was like, is this the same Ted Knight from the Starman book that he would do immediately afterwards? And it's not quite.
Yeah.
By the end, though, I was kind of like, okay, I can kind of see that. But
people keep trying to put this book into holes. Some people think this is like a prequel to New Frontier, which is crazy, and it's not.
No.
But it just uses elements that are from all over the place. I mean, at the end of this book, half the JSA has been killed, so it's not like it's definitely an Elseworlds book.
It's interesting though. It kind of surprised me is that I know they put JSA on the front, which I actually think is a mistake. I know you have to sell books, but about 3/4 of the way through, about 3/4 of the way through the Justice League shows up, or the JSA shows up. I'm like, oh right, all these characters who haven't been in it, because you were saying they're all B and C characters. So when I don't know, is she? I want to say like Black Canary. Is there a Golden Age?
Yeah, Black Canary. She was a Golden Age character. Yeah.
I was like, couldn't remember my history on that. So she shows up, and there's a lot of the other characters.
Dr. Midnight and Sandman and all characters who were not at all in the story. So basically, they say you have to come to the Senate and like register. It's sort of like Civil War, and so all the JSA characters show up in costume to register. And they're all waving to the crowds, and it's Black Canary, and
this is because like the story that's going on is this Tex guy, has basically become the up and coming rising populist hero of America, and he starts off and he was a superhero, and then he's the guy who killed Hitler and Otto Franz, and he becomes a senator, and basically is the Joe McCarthy, and at the end he's literally Joe McCarthy does show up, but and he's getting so much political power and populist sentiment that the other politicians and heroes, they kind of have to go with him, even though they don't, which tell a story that's timeless. Oh, you got it.
And so the big fight starts actually in the Senate, and like that's where a lot of people get killed. And
I loved the beginning of that scene that I guess Joan, Miss America, she just starts talking, and everyone's like, "What the hell's she doing?" But they'd set it up. I mean, but like literally everybody, good guys and bad guys, are all like, "Why are you?" And she just keeps going, and then. Ooh, Robot Man is bad shit, man.
Yeah. Shut up, you. It's a brutal and sad ending when it happens, and then as you said, the giant man Alan Scott shows up, and I loved him throughout the book. I loved how he was bigger than everyone.
I loved that.
They kept saying that he was a big guy, and he was like a foot taller than everybody else. I loved the struggles of his radio empire as TV shows up, and so then he has to switch to TV, and he won't turn his writers over to the HUAC committee, and like he's just a good dude.
Yes,
with a cracked ring.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of things to like about this. Just
we even mentioned Manhunter, who was a character that recently came back into play in Bendis' Superman book, and one of the things we talked about the show is a lot of people don't know who Manhunter is, and he was basically the other guy that went to war. It was him and America Commando, and Manhunter went sort of deep undercover. He didn't get the glory. He came back in to the United States in a crate on a ship,
and he's messed up for reasons that we discover later. But I mean, that's one of those nice redemptive things.
He's the side. He's sort of the other side of this story, and it was. I mean, God, and I just keep looking at the Paul Smith art, and it's just short.
It really
the storytelling is incredibly strong.
Yeah, there were. I think I sent you a page at some point. There's some of the fight scenes, some of the sort of street level fight scenes were just really wonderfully choreographed, and there are a couple of actual like I don't want to say like not dream sequences, but sort of mosaic-y type of pieces, that had to do with like Manhunter. I'm trying to find one of them, but basically, like, it was a very.
Well, he would dream about being tortured, and he would see it as an eagle being tortured because that's the symbol of America, and it was very disturbing.
On page 43 of your digital reader, which would be, it's not on here as what the page number would be, but basically they're experimenting on him, but they're out in the woods, and there's eyes, and it's very, it's like
disturbing.
Kind of Animal Man-like. This is the eagle you're talking about. That's the bottom panel. But I got to that, and I was like, "What the hell?" And this guy, and I always thought that Paul Smith was British for some reason. Apparently I knew nothing.
Sounds
about
British.
Him. Yeah, just the kind of books that he works on and how this stuff looked. He's not. He's from Kansas or Missouri or somewhere. He came up on like the Bakshi Lord of the Rings stuff, like as an animator. And then James Robinson, who's writing, to be honest with you, the most American story you could put together. He's from Manchester, England. Like, It's very interesting.
And then of course it's called the Golden Age. So at the end of the story, it's the segue. We get to see the future a bit. Who has settled down into retirement, who's gotten married. People have gotten older, and then we see a new wave of heroes has arrived, led by Captain Comet, who was a kid who showed up at the ceremony to register because they wanted all heroes to register, and they were like, no one knows who you are, kid, and he ends up playing a part in the final battle. And so he becomes sort of the Superman character here for the Silver Age, and you've got Aquaman and Barry Allen and Hal Jordan and Ray Palmer and John Jones and Oliver Queen. They all show up at the final page. Adam Strange, of course, because he's awesome.
But even that, like, there's a bit to it because he's not the one who's ultimately responsible for what happens.
Right.
Like, but he gets to be the hero. So there's this other like, social comment that's happening at the same time. This shit is layered.
You take the depth and breadth of Robinson's work, and he's in the conversation.
Yes.
Of the great modern writers. He may not be in the top 10, but he's in the top discussion.
I think partially because I haven't really read anything. He's been in and out of comics. He was the guy for a little while, then he was out for a while, and then he kind of came back, and he did work that was okay. It had, sort of bits of him that I liked in it, but it didn't have this focus. I don't know if
Right.
that's this vision almost is, I think, the word. Like, they were jobs. He took the jobs. He wrote Superman for a little while. They were fun, but it wasn't this, and it wasn't Starman. But because he's
or JSA, his run on JSA was great.
Yeah, I don't think I read that actually, so that probably should be a thing. But I was gonna say, like, he goes out of my mind as a person, like my favorite stories or whatever. So someone asks me, "Hey, what's your favorite story?" I've got answers, and then I'll click and go, "Oh fuck, Starman!" Like, Starman is one of my favorite comics, and I kind of forget about it sometimes. Like, there's very few comics that I went and I bought all of the hardcover deluxe editions or finished them. A lot of times I'll get like 3 out of 4 of them. I have all 6 of those beautiful Starman books. They're like, it's a wonderful story. It's just so good. Like, he's so talented.
Yeah, and this is a great companion, even if it's not part of that continuity. This is a great companion piece to that book. It's if you're a JSA fan, if you're a JLA fan, this is just a great comic.
Yeah, no, it's a standalone. It's anybody who likes good comics, thoughtful comics, beautiful, well done comics. It's one story. You could read it right now. It is not like going back and reading a story that is 27 years old. It's not going to feel like that at all. There's nothing retro about it. Just great. I remember it being really good, but also, like, whenever we did this, 11, 10 years ago, or 9, 10 years ago, I wasn't the same reader that I am now, just like you're not. And so you get to come back and appreciate it in a whole other way.
So I assume it was my book on that show?
I assume. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Probably.
That makes sense. Then Day Tripper would have been Ron, and I would have been whatever the other one is that we don't remember anymore.
I mean, I can find it. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts on it while I look?
I mean, if I'm giving out ratings, I'm saying 5 out of 5 for every category. I thought I'd enjoy it, and I was really glad I found it, but I couldn't put it down.
Oh no, this wasn't. Wow, interesting. That show was JSA: The Golden Age, The Archie Wedding, and Day Tripper.
Did I do this? Is this?
I had to be the Archie Wedding.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. We'll link this in the show.
Then I definitely was Golden Age because Ron did not pick that.
Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, this is great. I think I give it 4.5, but that's just, it's still really terrific. This is a great pick, and I'm really happy because I just don't think about this book, but it was great.
Yeah, no, it's worth it if
When you first told me, I thought you were talking about the one he did with the one he did where it was like Batman, Hourman, and a bunch of another JSA Elseworlds he did, which with a different artist. I can't think of it at the moment, but anyway, I'm glad it was this one.
Yep, it was good to go back.
So some other comics came out digitally this week. We're going to talk about a couple of them. All those books we talked about, was it last week? Yeah.
Yeah.
They all had number 2 issues. I don't think we read any of them. I didn't read any of them.
No. I think the ones that you told me that you didn't really like, I was like, well, I don't have to bother with this then.
So, yeah, I tried to read Flash, but I just couldn't make it through it. Anyway, Sabrina the Teenage Witch number 2. Kelly Thompson, Veronica, and Andy Fish on art. Jack Morelli on letters. And this was one I had totally forgotten. We talked about number 1, and I wasn't going to read this, but you read it, so I did.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm biased by the fact that I had that lost conversation with Kelly Thompson, and she'll be back very soon. But sometimes when you do that and you have more context for the person, it makes their writing more enjoyable. In context to sort of everything that's going on, this is sort of a nice, like, escapey kind of thing, and there's, it's a teen drama. It's exactly what it is, and I really like the art and coloring on this.
The art's beautiful.
I'm 100%
the art is really
into
beautiful.
That. And so, as a thing that's sort of a little bite, like there's some mystery going on. There's definitely a parallel to the Doctor Strange all magic has a price kind of thing, which I was like, well, it's over in Marvel, but whatever. But end of the day, I liked it. I had fun reading it, and I think we need that from comics right now.
It's interesting that this is how weird the world is, where you are recommending a Archie universe fun teen drama book, and I could not. I barely got through this one.
That's fine. Yeah. No.
I don't know, and I don't know why.
How much is this like one of those Archie books?
I mean, similar, but like not a lot of magic spell casting.
Sure.
And I'm not reading the Archie books currently, but I don't know. For whatever reason, I'm just not connecting with this story.
I think that's fine. But there's not a lot of comics, and I was like, well, I'll give this another shot. I like Kelly. And I'm not kidding. Like, I think the art is wonderful.
But the art, that's what kept me going. There's a couple of really just terrific panels here. I'm looking at the one where she, on page 18, where she's sitting on their bedroom floor making a salt circle. It's just really, there's a lot of great detail. It's just really well shot, just like low angle. It's nice. The first page too, where she's sitting on her bed, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing I like the most is the coloring. It's just very, it'd be watercolor if it was 20 years ago, but it's just a nice use of
not at her bed. She's sitting at the kitchen counter. Basically, if anytime Sabrina's sitting, apparently I'm into it. But I just like that her eyes are dots. It's almost impressionistic that expresses a feeling. That she's distraught a little bit. She's a little scared and worried, and that the dot eyes make that clear.
Yeah, that whole composition is really nice. Everything's kind of hanging. Look
at the detail on it, though. I mean, it's like a Joe Kubert.
Her shoulders are hanging. The curtains are droopy. The plants are droopy. The towel is droopy. The cat's even bent over. Like, that's a nice bit of storytelling right there.
Yep.
So there you go. Another thing that came out at some point.
Came out over the weekend.
Yeah, since we last did a show. By the way, that's not working for me. Just having comics come out willy-nilly. That's no good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's for everybody. For me, that's tough.
No, it's no good.
Swamp Thing, New Roots, #1, by Mark Russell, with art by Marco Santalucci. How are we not going to look at this?
You added some letters in there. Santucci.
Oh, sorry about that.
Santucci.
Whose name I know, but I don't remember from what.
You've seen him on stuff before.
Mark Russell's going to Mark Russell. He's going to do his thing.
I feel like this was Mark Russell light.
Well, I mean, it's a 17-page intro story, sort of do a short story. And for a little while, I was like, maybe he's going to play this straight. And then at some point, basically, Swamp Thing's going through and he's killing he's beating up a bunch of security guards. Yeah. And somebody just goes, not for $12 an hour. I was like, there he is.
That, to me, so this whole story was that there's an evil food corporation or chemical corporation that's developing a seed that will disintegrate, so that you have to keep buying it. It won't propagate on its own. But the problem is Swamp Thing knows it's going to spread to other seeds and kill all the plant life in the world. So he's going around destroying their physical manufacturing plants. Mm-hmm. And so they've got a plan to stop him and use him as a incubator for their products. And that's on the high level very Mark Russell-y, but I just felt like it was very surfacey and thin. The best part to me were the guards, and that was where it got most Mark Russell-y. But you had the sort of creep show twist ending, but
good twist ending.
It was good. However, did they just not do an embalming on her, and they just threw her in a coffin and threw her in the ground? Like, did a doctor not check out her body?
I don't know.
I mean, it would have made sense if something had just put her in the ground, but then there's a whole funeral happening. Like a whole formal funeral. So like, he just threw her body in the coffin and they put it in the ground.
Dude,
I guess because she's in the clear box.
I'll tell you what lines just told me what to prepare for and how this was going to go. And I really do think that this is probably toned down. I think it's just make this a little all agey. Don't keep it that edgy. Don't be too silly. Yep. He couldn't help himself. Put a couple of jokes in there. But she's the first time we meet this character, she goes, "Mr. Swamp, I've been a voodoo priestess most of my life." And I was like, oh, that's lame, but not necessarily in a bad way. I just, Mr. Swamp, I've been a voodoo priestess most of my life. That's some Loom of Fate shit.
I didn't like this.
No?
I did not like this.
I had fun with it.
I mean, I enjoyed parts of it, like panels of it. And this is the same review I gave last week. I enjoyed panels and I enjoyed scenes. I thought the art was really good, but story-wise, I thought it was very thin.
I thought, I don't know. Yeah, like it's. I think it's interesting. I was like, okay, I think this is a character that he can do, and I'm maybe putting things into this, but there's a bit where he's going after the security guards a couple times, and he keeps saying like, I'm not going to kill you because you're just working, but don't you understand that you're going to kill all? And the guy's like, it's my job, and that's interesting, and just like it's almost like Swamp Thing is like like a super idealistic eco-terrorist, which actually is what he is.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, sweet.
And there's sort of another side to it, but at the same time, he's right. You can't destroy all the plants, and then it is funny that Russell just has to have an evil executive, just outright evil. He's not even trying to there's no gray about it. Every one of his his executives are just soulless evil bastards, and it's funny.
Yeah, nah, it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like there was good ideas, and again, I liked parts of it, but not enough to keep reading it.
You want more, and you're not
I do.
getting it.
Yeah. Clearly, whatever they did these books for, and we talked about it last time, they were in these DC Giants. They're not for me. That's fine. Other people enjoy them. That's cool.
All right.
Because that means they get to read something. So that's comics for the week. There you go.
That's our comics. Now we should move along. We've changed our order around a little bit, so this might feel like it's coming early, but we've got patron powers to give away. So we want to thank the patrons, the folks who are coming in.
Right, and we also mentioned before, and it's come up a couple times in the patron group. We're not having a patron pick until there's a bunch of choices to be made between a bunch. Like we could have, this week would have been 2 books. It's just not really. Plus one of them we didn't know about until the last minute. It's just again, the world is weird. It's not going to go back to normal for a while, so there may not be a patron pick for a while. We talked about it before. We'll mention it again. Just because I saw it come up again in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I did too. And somebody, people have made some suggestions. That's cool. We'll do that. We'll look at those. No promises, but keep that up. We need to think of things too, so that always helps. But we're
also having no trouble filling this hour.
None
at the moment.
None. We could do that. I think we could do this with 2 books right now. Like it's not a problem. Let's move on. What's so patrons that contributed over $5 a month get a patron power. We were running low, but things have changed. So
yeah, we're no longer low.
SeanWithHats is your man, or I'm Sean.
SeanWithHats always has enough counter space.
Oh my God! Does that extend to desks?
Yes, whenever he needs a surface, whether it's cooking and prepping or working, it just magically he seems to always have enough space.
Having been in your apartment, I am understanding. I'm understanding where this is coming from.
When if you're prepping a really intricate meal with a lot of ingredients, a lot of chopping and dicing going on, and you got to keep things, and suddenly you're out of space. Sean he always just moves a bowl and there's room for it. He always, there's just always room. It's magic.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's bending space-time.
Yes, but it's counter space-time.
Oh my God, that was amazing. I just had a real, I got a sense of calm, a sense of joy came over me when you said that, and that was.
Oh yeah, his cooking is way less stressful than mine.
Okay, fair enough.
Where are we gonna put this bowl?
It's funny because let's get personal. My wife and I have a very different idea about what enough space is. And we've had this, like, when we were buying houses, she's like, that house isn't big enough. I was like, that house is gigantic. And, like, it goes to, like, the kitchen. She's always like, there's just not enough counter space. And I was like, first of all, I cook. Second of all, there's plenty of room. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, she's kind of right.
Brian Compton is your patron.
Brian Compton can project what basically works like a holodeck. He's, hey, come over here. We're gonna go to the bowling alley, but we just do it in our house. We don't have to go anywhere, or the movie theater, or a baseball game, or perhaps the Grand Canyon. But all around you and his guests, you will, for all intents and purposes, be in a different place, doing a different thing.
He's a human holodeck.
Yeah, not hard to determine the origin of this power. But right now, Brian Compton is going to be the most popular person if that was a thing.
See, all things being equal, Josh, you should be living your greatest life right now. Not having to go do anything or see anybody. It's just that everyone else is also with you.
That is the main problem. I am not. My day-to-day life is very similar. It's just that there are more people here and they want things and the messes build up faster. But wanting to go somewhere and being able to go somewhere are 2 different things.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of not being able to.
Sure, no, that's the psychological hard part.
That is, but I'm cool. I genuinely feel for people who are extroverts, people who really do like to go out and see people who like to go to bars. Like I'm sure there's people like, I love to go dancing more than anything else, and they can't go. I feel terrible for you. I'm fine.
You're living your best life.
I mean, like I'm okay. I'm protecting the kids and the wife, and we have a job. I'm good. I can go for a bike ride. That's the things I want to do. I was going to try to start a band, and that's off now. But besides that,
right?
I'm fine. It's good.
Well, there you go. Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can go at the $5 or higher level. Get your powers like Sean or Brian. And what else can happen there?
Well, over there, if you go to patreon.com/iFanboy, you will note that for a long time we have been talking about our next stretch goal, which was at the level of 3K, and we hit that, and so we then had to come through on some promises that we made, which was stretch goal rewards are a monthly non-comics media podcast, which we have dubbed, almost without thinking about it, the Media Splode, to fit into our Splode family of podcasts. Because we have a long history of embarrassingly titling things.
Why not? Keep a good thing going.
And there's that, and we are currently uploading our backlog of archival video shows, both full length and mini, to YouTube and re-embedding them on our website. There's already stuff that's going up there. We were doing it a little systematically because it's not really possible to sort of do that in bulk.
Well, it's just a lot of work, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But we're doing 3 a week, so you get a new mini and 2 new full length shows a week. Monday is mini Mondays, and then you get Wednesday and Friday you get new video shows. So you can check that out. Also, we should mention that now our next stretch goal. It's crazy enough to say our next stretch goal is as I look furiously for the notes I took on G.I. Joe, is the quarterly barbecue and email video show, which, again, it's stupid that I'm even saying it out loud on this show that this is a possibility, but our next stretch goal is the return of the incredibly popular video show in which we would cook meat and answer emails, and we'll do that once a quarter if we hit our next stretch goal.
Which I am discouraging greatly.
We have to buy camera equipment because we got rid of all of our camera equipment. We have to figure out how that's going to happen, whose house are we going to fly to and shoot, because we all live in different places now. It's a whole goddarn technological and logistical mess, but we will do it if we hit the next stretch goal.
Sure.
And it'll be a lot less meat.
That's true. Well, for you.
In the past.
Ron will eat it. You can go to the t-shirt store over at ifanboy.threadless.com. You'll find 8 designs there, including the Stay Home and Read Comics shirt and items, different types of shirts, different types of items. A portion of all of those will be going to, what's the name of the thing? I'm sorry.
A portion or half of all of our proceeds from the Stay Home and Read Comics design is going to the Comic Book United Fund, which is a fund just for comic book stores. So once the sales sort of go through and everything, we've been getting sales, but once we sort of hit a plateau, we'll take half that money, send it to Comic Book United Fund to help stores in need. So anything you get, t-shirt, a book, a bath mat, anything that's to Stay Home and Read Comics on it, half that money is going to go to comic stores. So check it out at fanboy.threadless.com.
Yeah, and there's already been there's a pretty good donation in there already, and we're gonna
it's already our second most popular design.
Yep. So check that out. Check out the other designs that are still there. I mean, as always, it's never been more true. Nothing makes sense. Nothing matters. Remember that. We're always trying to think of new things to put up there. So when we have other designs, we will. But go over there. Go to ifanboy.com/support. If you don't want to deal with any of that, like I don't want any more junk. I don't want to order it. I don't want to be a patron. That's fine. You don't have to do any of these things. But if you think that this is important to you and this is a thing that you're able to do and want to do that, you can go to ifanboy.com/support and go. There's a PayPal link. We got a donation from Hélène Deval this week, who's been a long-time listener and supporter, and we really appreciate that. Merci. She speaks French.
She is French.
She is French. French people speak French, so that's how that works.
Usually.
That's right.
It's usually how it tracks.
What kind of person are you? Does not parler français?
German. And finally, ifanboy.com/Amazon. That's where you can go. You can find all the Booksplode books. I just updated it with all the latest books. So you can find all the Booksplode books there if you're wondering what to buy, some comics to read while over the break. Or not break, but the comics break. And this is not a break for anybody. And general link to Amazon is there as well.
Well, they'll fight for freedom whenever there's trouble. Let's welcome Ron to the air.
Thank God G.I. Joe is here.
This is the final episode of the M.A.S.S device.
I realized I was doing some research. This was a mini series. It wasn't like I was like, oh, season 1, but like no, actually they like tested the water first. Yeah. Connor, why don't you give us all the vital details? But I would like to read the Wikipedia description first when we start talking because I find it very amusing.
Well, it does make sense that they tested it out with this 5-part miniseries before jumping in, but that's good information. Duel in Devil's Cauldron is the title of the Mass Device Part 5, G.I. Joe Real American Hero, originally aired September 16th, 1983, directed by Dan Thompson, written and produced by Ron Friedman for Marvel Productions. And here we get, as Ron's going to tell us, the finale.
So this is how whoever wrote this on Wikipedia distilled this episode down, and I would like you guys to help me tear it apart.
Okay.
Cobra attempts to destroy New York City, but the Joes counter it with their new mass device. The Joes notice the ring Duke gave the slave girl was a homing device, and they teleport to Cobra Mountain. The Joes arrive at Cobra headquarters to launch their assault. Destro redirects the mass device towards the Earth's core in order to disintegrate it. Cobra Commander, in panic, enlists the help of the Joes to stop the device. After successfully destroying the device, Cobra Commander is arrested and Destro escapes.
That's not right.
I feel like that's a different episode than what I saw.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
those things all happened.
They all happened.
The theme for me with the whole series, but this episode specifically was that's not how this works. So, in a way,
it's poetic, right?
It fits because. I mean, I know we've said this about all the episodes so far, but there were a great many things where I was like, that is not how that works. At all. It was like, and they did it before, but they really brought it to a new level here. Like, they're actively ignoring any laws of physics, motion, science, chemistry. None of it matters.
Well, it opens up. So the cliffhanger was Destro kidnapping Scarlet, and then she uses her crossbow and shoots it with her feet and blows up the controls that are controlling the little ship, and it's taking a nosedive.
Which was a great cliffhanger because it's like, wow, Scarlet's fighting back. She's going to break out of it.
And then so we open up, and they're in this death spiral, and they must have been like 100,000 feet in the air because the death spiral lasts for 5 minutes. And she used through some dumb mechanisms with her arrows, they managed to get control of the ship, but like it was blown up, and now it's just one stabilizer thing's broken, and then he's able to fly like normal after that.
She didn't escape. It like literally was not needed at all in any way. Like she helped Destro get control of the ship so they wouldn't both die, and then he kept her chained up.
And she was really rude to him while he was trying to do it too.
She was really rude.
I thought trying to help us here, and you're calling him ham hands and
I thought that was a great scene. Like in terms of like drama or whatever. I was like, that's a pretty good scene.
No, it was. It was just funny how the big explosion ended up meaning nothing to the controls of the ship.
That's not how that works.
Right. And everything's fine. Mm-hmm. Also, the grotesque hideaway describing the Cobra Mountain base is another thing. Every episode, there's been one really nice insult. But
what I thought was interesting that she gets to Cobra Mountain, and then of course they immediately, they try to give her it's like a redo of Duke. They give her the headband that the slave girl gives her the piece of tinfoil to block it, and so up to this point, Duke is with Scarlet, right?
Well, that was the implication.
That's at the end, and we're talking about that.
Yeah, well, so because at this point now, what I'm liking is that like Duke clearly has something with the slave girl, and now she and Scarlet are becoming buddies.
Okay, let's
judo chopping furniture together.
Okay. Just first, when they
destroy all this furniture.
When they land, you have to respect Scarlet because she comes out of the stairs and she just makes sound like 12 Cobra guys.
And like to the point that when they finally caught her, I'm like, she could take those guys too. Like it's like she gave up. Yeah, it was weird.
She was just showing him what's up. So then she goes and she has a sexy fight with the slave girl, which is actually pretty well done. There's all these like silhouettes on the wall and everything, and then they find out
this was an artsy episode. You had that reflection in Cobra Commander's visor of Destro. Like they got real cinematic with some of this really rudimentary 80s animation.
I'm just going to skip forward because this is the time to talk about this. When they all get together, Duke shows up, and then he spends the rest of the episode with both of them on either arm.
They're having
the women are both hanging on him in a not unromantic way. There's no other way to read that. Duke is
no. When he arrives and he sees Scarlet and the slave girl together, he and the slave girl immediately kiss.
Yeah,
in front of Scarlet,
like full on, like right in front of her.
And she's just waiting for her turn. It wasn't like she was angry or anything.
Scarlet is cool with it.
Yeah. She's a redhead.
Scarlet is 100% down with
it. Might explain a lot. It might explain a lot.
Oh yeah, so, like the whole thing with Snake Eyes. Like,
oh, I see what's going on here.
It's an open thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the party. You're right. They're both. She's got Scarlet on one arm and the slave girl on the other. It's like they're gonna retire to the barracks in a minute.
Yeah, they're giant round camouflage bed.
All right, so that's the Duke Scarlet Slave Girl plotline. For me, aside from the flagrant disregard for physics and science and all that stuff, the greatest moment of this episode and perhaps all 5 of this miniseries was Cobra Commander's jaunty cape.
Well, I would. You're not wrong about that, and don't think that I didn't see it and say, oh, that's jaunty. So yes,
for some reason, Cobra Commander dons a purple cape and a Cobra scepter and just starts parading around Cobra headquarters as if he owns the place.
Well, this leads to a scene and then a very big question. Yeah, because Destro says, "No way, bitch."
Yeah.
Beats him up and takes over, and I'm like, what is the command structure of this organization?
There isn't. He's the second in command, even though he's a contractor, we just talked about last week.
I don't think he is second in command. I think he's just.
He's in the song. It's Cobra and Destro.
Yeah, it's Cobra and Destro. I don't know who's in charge here.
But that was not. You would not accept that move. Like any of these organizations, hierarchy. The strongest person takes over, and then the grunts follow behind. But I like that as soon as he took over, he realizes global politics is really hard. Well, no one will listen to him. He has all these demands. They have to talk about it in committee.
So hang on. So he come, and you're right, Connor. But Destro arrives back with Scarlet, and Baroness fills him in that while you were gone, Cobra Commander went nuts. He tried to blow up New York, and the Joes stopped them. And so Destro's like, all right, I need to take control of this. He brings out all the world's leaders. Has General Flagg been captured this whole time, and the Joes don't care?
Yeah, he was one of the leaders that was there.
They seem to be much more concerned about Duke and Scarlet than they are about General Flagg.
Well,
but
they gotta get back to the orgies.
So Destro tries to manipulate the leaders into doing it. They don't do what he wants, so he goes, "Fine, I'm going to blow up New York." It does the same thing Cobra Commander did.
Yeah, because it's hard being in a chair.
It's the exact same ploy, and of course it doesn't work.
Right, but then he doubles down. He said, "You know what? Let me blow up the Earth."
Right. Yes.
He says, "I'm going to blow up the Earth," and he goes, "We'll be back." It's like, no, you're not. You're going to blow up the Earth.
So now, before he blows up the Earth, they use the weird mind probe thing on Duke. Who's the medic's name? What's the medic's name? Medic.
Doc.
It's like the most simple name, Ron.
Where Doc gives us a tour of Duke's childhood.
Which, hold on, I got to talk about. I have to talk about.
There's a lot here.
Yes.
He's Batman. Yeah. There's 2 sequences. There's a sequence where he's in like a gray chemist smock doing chemistry. Cut to him on a bunch of parallel bars. That sequence has been used several times for Batman. Whether you see him in a gray smock doing chemistry, cut to him on the rings or the bars, and it was the same back-to-back sequence that they used for Batman's origin all the time. So I was like, oh shit!
Did Batman wear a unitard?
Well, he didn't go to Yale either, but. It was just weird. It was very weird. 35-year-old Yale freshman. So
then, while Duke cannot remember where the Cobra's hideout is, despite this mind probe, they focus on the ring, and they do use the ring as a homing device to find her. So they use the M.A.S.S device to teleport everyone, including some of the craziest tech, like these spider walkers to bring the tanks up the mountain.
Yeah.
This reminded me of a memory that I had from the time. I always got mad at the show when they had vehicles and weapons that were not available in toy form. And then further, ones that did not fit the aesthetic of the ones that they did have.
Yes, thank you, because those were not Joe tech.
No.
They looked like Cobra tech. They were scary.
Yeah.
That's not how that works.
Right.
Well, if you notice that it was Duke's job to fly up with the jetpack and shoot a cable into the rock so they could hoist up the vehicles, but then he would go up higher. In the meantime, it was hooked up to his jetpack, so he was pulling them up.
That's not how jetpacks work.
I was just gonna say, also generous use of jetpack. There was a lot of floating in like one spot.
Those were helicopter moves. Those were not.
And so that they use this to climb the mountain, then they start a ground assault, and that's where everything's going. Then all of a sudden, Sky Strikers come out with an aerial side. Where did the Sky Strikers get teleported in? How did they know where to go? I don't get it.
I always thought the Cobra Castle was in a cave, and now we find out it's on a mountain, but
Cobra Mountain they call it.
It's a cave.
Also, G.I. Joe is really good at celebrating way too early. Like at one point they blow up like a bridge or something, and all those Joes start cheering and holding their guns up. Meanwhile, there's Cobra guys everywhere.
Well, Torpedo brought weed.
So while all this melee is happening, and very quickly Joe turns the tide and takes over. That's when Destro points the M.A.S.S device at the ground, and I don't really see Cobra Commander enlisting the help of the Joes to stop it, rather than the Joes coming in and Cobra Commander going over there. That's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Man.
He just panicked, and then Gung Ho shot the controls a couple of times, and it was over.
That was it.
Does Cobra Commander not have a sidearm?
Oh God! Well, yes, it's on his pants.
Exactly. He could have just shot it.
Ron has been talking about this forever. If they draw your weapon on your uniform,
you cannot use it.
No.
It is there for decorative purposes only.
It's not armed.
It's not functional. No, it's not in any way, shape, or form. What a crazy ride. So it ends and they save the world. They capture Cobra Commander. Sure, Destro got away, but that Joe. Surely there will never be another threat from Cobra.
Right. Never. It's done. It was a crazy ride.
Yeah. I feel like the bones of what we love with G.I. Joe is definitely there, but too many of the and now as we see the character development, because the characters came from the comics and then jump to the cartoon, and then you see the cartoon take the lead in the future, and now I get a better sense of why the character designs were so wildly different, because so many guys I didn't know who was who.
Yeah,
there were too many guys in helmets and beards.
Nope.
Right?
I disagree. The more guys they can put on there, the better, because they would let me look and say, "Wait, well, right, that's Beeper, and that's
Beeper,
whoever,
Breaker."
I know, but the early ones had shit names, so.
Yeah. I kind of like the early Joes who all just wore green outfits, and they had they were Stalker, Breaker, Stealer. They all had S names.
Stalker, Breaker, Stealer.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, but it made it harder to when they got more diverse later, it was more fun as a kid.
Yeah,
because it's just there's a white dude with a beard and one without a beard. Which one's Zap? Which one's Flash? I don't know.
So I definitely do think this is great to see if you compare this to Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie is the best, and it's just downhill from there. Whereas G.I. Joe, I feel like it's uphill from here. This lays the base, but this isn't the greatest thing in the world.
It's pretty great.
It's pretty great.
It was really great.
It gets better. It gets better.
Sure, but I finished this episode and I was like, oh, there's a lot there.
No, yeah, exactly.
It was. I was like, oh, this is a gift. This show, and you're right. It lays the groundwork. So everything. See, the thing is that everything now is new, more or less, for us. We're right. This later we get to see what they do with this.
Right.
And move along. And when the more Joes start coming in, and they'll favor one Joe for a while, there's the shipwreck years and the
those Flint and Lady J become the main characters. Yeah. I mean, also I want to mention one of my favorite parts of this was the Cobra shoots the M.A.S.S device at the Empire State Building again, and so the Joes counter with their M.A.S.S device to shoot the beam out of the sky again. Josh. Not how it works.
Beams don't curve.
But my favorite part was Gung Ho cheering on the beam. Come on, beam, baby. Go beam. Yo, Joe.
I was like, is there liquid in that beam? Is that why it's coming around?
It's the curvature of the Earth, Josh. The Earth is curved.
This show is Neil deGrasse Tyson's nightmare. When he was 12 and he watched this, he was sending them letters. Sons of bitches.
I'm looking forward to the return. We'll still do the next part, the next volume. I'm
in this for the long haul, my friend. We're doing the next miniseries, and then we're starting at season 1. Dude, I'm sorry. There are 95 episodes in total of this run before we get to G.I. Joe the movie. I'm locked and loaded for all 95 plus the movie.
2 years worth?
I'm kind of with him.
Thank you.
Watch our listenership plunge.
Listen, Quick Kick or Get Out. That's all I'm saying.
You know what? I haven't heard. I've only heard positive feedback. Not one person has said, if you hate this, I want to know.
Yeah. Please let us know.
Because I've seen nothing but unreserved praise and happiness that it's a thing. So, and I feel that way. So I want to know that we're having a moment.
Yep. I feel that way too. I've gotten some positive feedback from this. So, clearly if you guys don't want me around, you want coming back for G.I. Joe, Josh and I can do this on our own time, but we figure let's let everyone kind of celebrate in it while they can.
I mean, I wouldn't want to, like, you have to have Conor there. Or are you saying, no, I'm not even going to say it out loud. Spin off.
I wasn't complaining. I was just saying, anyway, We'll talk about it off the show. This is an off-show discussion.
Yep.
Is it? It's more fun this way.
So that was G.I. Joe. Oh, I lost the script. I'm doing something else.
New taxes.
I like that also Gung Ho's tattoo is kind of faded. It was like light bluing.
He's been around, so...
I moved all my apps. So that was G.I. Joe Duel in the Devil's Cauldron, The Mass Device Part 5, and that was G.I. Joe Corner. Josh, Ron, you going to hang around for an email or two?
Yeah, I got some time. Let's do it.
I have one for you, or I thought I'd get you to weigh in on. Ken J. from the Great White North of Canada says, what was a better run, John Byrne's X-Men run or John Byrne's Fantastic Four run?
X-Men, clearly. And that's 100% my fan bias giving me. The Fantastic Four run was great and had some really cool stuff in it, and paved the way for a lot of the stuff that Byrne did later on at Marvel, like She-Hulk and things like that. But for me, it's the X-Men run is the definitive Byrne. Like, everybody's fandom of Byrne started on X-Men for that reason. And honestly, I feel like Byrne was at his best when he was drawing Claremont scripts than when he was writing and drawing, personally.
I agree with that.
When did those? I don't think I've read. I'm aware of them. I've always wanted to read the Fantastic Four run, but what's the timeline on those?
Mid '80s. X-Men was first.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. He went from X-Men to Fantastic Four. So a 5-year run from issues 232 to 295 from July 81 to October 86. Mm-hmm. So he had come off of X-Men. He did Dark Phoenix Saga and all that fun stuff. And then he went to Fantastic Four. And then from there, he jumped and went to DC and did Superman or Man of Steel or whatever the hell it's called.
Man of Steel, then Superman.
Yeah. So.
I agree. I think that I think they're great. There's a reason why everyone from a certain age is a John Byrne fan. But I think if you're talking about one run, it's the X-Men run.
Yep.
She-Hulk was great, and he did a lot of great stuff at DC. But
and part of the reason why he did such a good job on Fantastic Four was because he went back to what Stan and Jack did. Like, he really made an effort to be as nostalgic 20 years after Stan and Jack as you could be with Fantastic Four, and that resonated with people. He did some cool stuff. He got rid of the Baxter Building. They added She-Hulk. They added a lot to the mythos of Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
which is being used today.
Yeah, exactly.
He's definitely one of the most important creators of all time.
Unfortunately, yeah. But,
certainly.
No, the work is not unfortunate.
Yeah, the work is 100% solid. Yeah, solid.
He was the I think I want to say the driving force of I want to say maybe from that time. I never read X-Men, so I don't.
If you talked about the top creators of the '80s, he's in the top. He's in the top discussion.
3? Yeah,
he's definitely top 3. The argument is he's the top creator of the '80s.
Well, that's what I was about to say, and then I hesitated. I was like, he's the top guy from then. I thought, well, that's not entirely fair, but he's in.
No, and I think people are sometimes, because of his recent wackiness, they don't want to give him the credit he's due, but his work is unassailable.
Oh, totally. Yep. For me, the whole thing is I remember right when I started coming back to comics, the big deal was he was doing Spider-Man Chapter 1, and I was all in. I was super excited, and it was terrible. And I think that was the beginning of the end, really, for him and me.
Well, his sensibility was out of step with
I know, but even that, compared to the stuff that I have read of his, even the Fantastic Four stories that I've read, or West Coast Avengers or She-Hulk, it was just weird. And I get what he was doing, it just didn't work. And also, the art didn't look. I don't know. I think he had either was inking himself or something like that. It just wasn't the same.
I'll get old.
I do like during his run, Alicia left the Thing and hooked up with Johnny Storm. So it's worth it just for that. That's genius.
Family drama.
Right. Exactly.
Well, there was always weird sexual stuff in his books.
Oh, hey. Ooh.
Which you didn't really notice till you were older.
And well, okay, he learned that from Claremont. It's much worse on the Claremont side. Yes. Yeah.
Let's see. What should we talk about? Let's read Josh's email. Is this from Josh from New Hampshire?
It's not. It's a separate Josh, as far as I know. There's many evidence in here. Josh says, and I can do this in my voice because I'm Josh.
It is you.
Yes. Thank you so much for keeping the show going. I work at a grocery store in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and listening to your show in the morning before we open really helps me escape from the anxiety before having to open up the store. And I left that in. We always take those things up. But we were talking about doctors last week, and we're going to this dude, I'm putting him on the same level. Working at a grocery store. So I just want to point out, if, again, I've said this, if this helps anybody get through their day, then it's making us feel like $1 million for real. Anyway, actual question. Aside from that, I've been thinking about this for about 3 days since I listened to the Pick of the Week with Jim, and this was an older email, and you guys spoke about the industry halt. Do you think now would be a good time to plan for the future with some really strong runs to get people back into shops? I know it would never happen, but if Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey did a short Batman run, or just all over big-hitting books to really breathe some life back into the industry after this halt, or a time to allow creators to get ahead on books and have a more consistent run of books coming out on time, I'm just trying to look at the good possibilities of all of this.
Well, I sure can't comment. No, I mean, and just to be clear, I if everyone knows that I do work at Marvel, and all my opinions on this are my own. I don't speak for Marvel in any way in this context. But I saw there was a whole bunch of rumors when the slowdown happened that the thing that will save the industry will be Marvel and DC doing a crossover again. And it's just like, and it's that armchair quarterbacking blogger kind of approach of ignoring the realities of the world. Right. That kind of I do think that like good. Kind of good creators, definitely is something that hopefully is done and we can see. But I think that there's a lot more at play here than just giving creators time to get ahead of books, because someone's got to pay them. And if there's no money coming in, then that gets complicated. Right.
Yeah. Good books will always win out, but they're not sitting on their hands doing nothing right now.
Well, some are because there's no other choice. But
Right. I mean, what I mean is that it's not like they're just saying, well, maybe we should not. Right. The people in charge aren't just going, well, I guess we'll just figure this out later. They've got to work with not having income and not being able to go to offices and not being able to plan. And yeah.
I think Ron's right. My instinct every time somebody talks about the crossover is that like that's the same old in terms of like, let's get the same people who always buy comics anyway excited, which is fine, but whatever. I do think that there is something to be said, if people were able to line up some really prestige great runs by sort of great folks, like it'd be really cool to be done with this, and all of a sudden mainstream comics to have this nice little renaissance of like getting back to the things that are important instead of digging themselves into this constant like, let's try to make up a slightly new character that we can monetize. And I know that that's the deal, but like a Marvel Knights type of thing, just do some really great comics for a little while would get people excited to get it going back in. I think that's neat, but I
don't know. I think honestly the more excitement would come from Marvel DC crossover than a Marvel Knights type run.
I mean, either way, I don't think that I don't think that stuff is going to drive more people than the stores that would have anyway. The comic book audience is installed.
I do think that and speaking as a fan, I do think that the applying the same evaluation of the industry and the way it works now that we had from 10 years ago is flawed inherently, because we've seen, and I got this when I worked at Image in terms of sales and stuff like that. 10, 15 years ago when we started doing this, Bendis and Brubaker and Miller and Joss Whedon and Rucker and Rucka and these names really, John Cassidy, these names really moved the needle. And, we saw it when Bendis went to DC. A name doesn't move the needle anymore. Yeah. Honestly, I hate to say it, but I hate to say it, nothing moves the needle anymore.
Well, right.
If anything that moves the needle is variant covers, and not even Kirkman doesn't even move the needle anymore. So it's like overdoing variant covers, crazy sales, kind of sales tactics to get retailers to order more, which Marvel does a ton of as well, or did. I don't know if they're going to still do that when it comes back. It's really if I knew what the recipe was to fix the industry, I would tell my employers and we'd do it, but it's hard, and what moves the needle is not what moved the needle 10 years ago.
That's a really good point. I think I've had that thought, but I think you articulated it better than I have. That's totally, like It's true. Like, what do you like? You know, I've said for a long time, like, it's the same audience. It's just us.
Yep.
Like, and like, how do you get? No one's figured that answer out. And it's not like they haven't tried everything. It's not like they didn't try to put comics in the movie theaters when they went and saw that. The movies are different things. They don't have anything to do with comics, you know, more or less. There's blips here and there. It's tough. I don't envy people in the publisher position. I don't envy creators. You know.
Yep.
That's a really tough position to be in, and this is not helping. So, I mean, I think the most you can say about it is it's going to be awful interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
like something's going to change, and it's going to be significant. It'll be interesting. That doesn't mean qualitatively good or bad, but wow.
Yeah. So.
Yep. All right, so that's the emails. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. It's always fun to drop in. I love you guys. I love the iFanboy audience. Go enjoy your comics and your G.I. Joe.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Should we throw Ron under the bus with this last email?
Yep.
Now that he's not here, from Robert. I've always loved to hear your choices for the goddamn American treasure. I've totally agreed with all the ones I've heard. My question is, have you ever given the honorific to a woman? I can think of a few off the top of my head. Meryl Streep, Allison Janney, Katharine Hepburn immediately come to mind. I'm sure I could think of more. I've been thinking about this since the last time I watched Bad Education and realized when I've never seen a bad or mediocre performance by Allison Janney. So a couple of things going on here before we get to the question, which is the Goddamn American Treasure is an honorific we've been giving out on Patron Hangouts. Now, Robert is not a patron because he would know the answer to this question. He would know there are rules to the Goddamn American Treasure, which is they have to be alive, which would immediately eliminate Katharine Hepburn.
I'm sorry, she can't be one.
So we've had that discussion several times on the Patron Hangouts, although we've closed the book on the Goddamn American Treasures after we put the entire cast of VR on. There are actually a lot of women,
which may not hold up to history, by the way.
Yeah, it may not hold up in court. They may get challenged in court. There are a lot of women. I'm trying to get the list up right now while we talk.
A couple off the top.
But it's important to note that all three of us have to vote them in, and we've had an obstinate member of the group who has been blocking Meryl Streep every time she's been nominated.
Yes.
And that's.
Is Allison Janney not?
I'm trying to give me a second.
Because that would be
Patreon
amazing.
changed their whole goddamn UI, and now it's finding things.
I know that Jennifer Lawrence is a GDAT.
Yeah.
I remember that much.
Carol Burnett.
Carol Burnett is a
Lily
GDAT.
Tomlin.
Lily Tomlin.
Yeah, here we go. I finally found the tags. Hold on.
If Allison Janney isn't, that's solely because we.
But the problem is Ron's never watched The West Wing, and
he likes her.
All right, here we go. I found the list. Here is the current complete list of iFanboy Goddamn American Treasures as discussed on the Patron Hangouts. Tom Hanks is the chairman emeritus. Bill Murray, George Clooney, Mel Brooks, Jeff Bridges, Denzel Washington, Robert De Niro, Carol Burnett, Jennifer Lawrence, Lily Tomlin, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Gene Hackman, Jack Nicholson, Robert Redford, Sally Field, Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, Alan Alda, Morgan Freeman, Christopher Lloyd, Danny DeVito, The Rock, Dick Van Dyke, Steve Martin, Michael Keaton, Paul Rudd, Jeff Goldblum, John Goodman, Frances McDormand, Allison Janney, Harrison Ford, Chevy Chase, Penny Marshall, Weird Al Yankovic, Kurt Russell, Mark Hamill, Steve Buscemi, Meryl Streep. She finally got in. I forgot.
There you go. Yeah.
Ron relented. Sidney Poitier, and in the entire first season regular cast of ER.
It has to be first season because I thought, well, several of those people are getting in just on the ER clause.
Right.
Like there was not a small number of people in there.
So Meryl Streep is a GDAT. Allison Janney is a GDAT, and Katharine Hepburn, if we were doing this show in the 1940s, would be a GDAT, but she's not because she's dead.
No problem. Absolutely. So there you go. Listen, we're three dudes, and they're dudes who we want to be and hang out with or whatever, and there's a disproportionate number of men. I get that. But
yeah. Also, it's only actors.
Yeah, that's true. Also, but I mean, Allison Janney's. She's the best. You're wrong. She's the literal best. She's like I always think of I was going to say Schillinger, J.K. Simmons. Like whenever he's in a thing, you're like, oh, this is great. She's like that, but she's better than him, and he's really good.
Yeah, he's not even a GDAT.
No, he's not. He's a. What would you say? I mean, this isn't official. Is he a treasure? Is he an AT?
I should also point out we really enjoy making the rules as arcane as possible. That's our deal.
Yeah, if you're like, this doesn't make sense, that's correct.
We have a T-shirt for you.
Always selling, always moving units.
He's an American treasure. He's an AT.
Sure. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So there you go. Thanks, Robert and Josh and Ken. Contact@ifanboy.com is how you can write in. Let's wrap up.
Let's do that. Here's stuff. I mentioned Kelly Thompson earlier. I'm going to reach out. We're going to schedule something. We're going to get her Talksplode second edition.
Question:
soon.
When you do that show, are you going to acknowledge that you're doing it again, or are you just going to pretend like
I am currently acknowledging it. So yes, no, I am going to acknowledge it. Maybe I'll just stick the old audio on the end.
Just hearing her talk?
Yeah, just hearing her talk. It's worth it. You'll have to piece together, and that way it won't be a complete waste. Certainly
I still think you should go back and you should re-record your questions based on the context of what was being talked about.
Can I do it in the voice of Eddie Vedder?
Yeah.
What would you say was the moment you fell in love with books? And then, like, the next question would be like Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. You should do that. I think that would be a better use of your time.
Tell me about Captain Marvel, okay? It's a good movie. Wait, you don't like the movie?
The Booksplode, it's coming out, is Jack Kirby's New Gods, and we don't know when that's coming because it's a very long read.
It is, and it's
only 12 issues or 13 issues, but it's very long.
He loves words, and he likes to bold many of those words.
So I would think that's going to come in mid-May, unless we really get on it and get it done next week. But that's a big if.
Yeah. There's a Mediasplode episode that came out this week past. We talked about Almost Famous. We are still friends.
We were friends at the end of the episode. That's what everyone needs to understand.
We love. There's
we bust balls.
Yeah. Almost Famous. We talked about Plot Against America, the HBO miniseries from David Simon and Ed Burns, based on the Philip Roth book. And we did the discussion at the beginning, which will be our thing. Is what we've been streaming, listening to, or sort of watching or reading lately.
Yep.
And then they're really fun. You should go check it out. Even if you're not a patron, you can listen to it. They brought it to you, but you can also enjoy it.
But if you are a patron, not next Saturday, but in 2 Saturdays, May 16th is our next patron hangout, our May hangout, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. That's an hour of nonsense with the three of us talking about whatever. But before that, again, while we're still all in quarantine, and many of us will still be at that point, at least those of us doing the show, we're doing our Tiki Happy Hour for everyone. Oh, I'm sorry. Wow, I forgot. Both these shows are available for everyone, not just patrons. We're still doing that while things are officially locked down. So anyone can come watch the Patron Hangout on May 16th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. And then before that is the Tiki Happy Hour, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Me and Gordon the intern and hopefully some special guests like last time will come and drink and talk about drunken nonsense before we get to the comic book nonsense. So that's all happening May 16th at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can find links. There'll be a link for that on iFanboy.com or Patreon.com if you're a patron. It's all happening there. It's all happening. It's in my head now from that media club.
I didn't change these names around, so I'll do this part.
Okay.
Head over to iFanboy.com to find all of our podcasts, all of the video shows that are there and that will be showing up. That's going to keep growing. You can find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out by liking Facebook.com/iFanboy, following at iFanboy on Twitter, or following at iFanboy Comics on Instagram. Whatever the pick is, I mean, it seems like we're pretty much leaning into this collected edition of something, but we reserve the right.
It could be anything. It could be my sandwich I had for lunch. It depends on how good it is that day.
I would love the challenge of spending 20 minutes talking about your sandwich and trying to make it entertaining. I'm not even joking. Follow us individually, CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, Jay Flanagan on Twitter and Instagram, and at RonXO on all of those things.
Yeah.
You can subscribe to our YouTube page, going to youtube.com/iFanboy. You can keep up to date on the old video show re-uploads, and we're putting this show on there now, right?
Yeah, we're just trying some things, so we've been uploading this show as well to YouTube. Somebody said that they put it up on their TV and listen to it through their nice TV speakers, so that's a benefit. That's cool.
Going through. I'm pushing through. If you like this show, write a review, leave a star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you do that kind of thing. Better yet, like we've said many times, if you want to tell people about it, you want to share it on social media, you want to let people know about it, you want to say that you really liked a particular episode or a thing, and you're digging the G.I. Joe stuff. I mean, if there was ever a time to be like, hey, I know you're not into comics, but you grew up when we did and you want to watch G.I. Joe, I'm not going to get mad if you tell somebody else about it and they have a good time listening for sure. Thanks, Ron, for coming on the show. I guess we're not getting rid of him.
It's like a weed.
He's not, you know what, not a Jamoke anymore. He's not there. I don't want
He claimed he was last week, but he is not a Jamoke.
No, he's pre-Jamoke, and he has not, you don't just, I'm sorry. There's got to be rules that we make up on the spot.
Arcane.
Yes, they can't. The thing is, they can't hold up in court because there is no court.
Right. We are the court.
It's right.
We're the judge, the jury, and the executioners.
And it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't matter. And that is not how that works.
All right, so that's another show. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands. Stay inside. Don't
go crazy. Keep your Jack Torrance at a minimum as best as possible. Is that a reference that is only for old people?
I don't know. Maybe, I guess.
All right. I don't know. I don't know what it means.
Next week. I don't even know what the pick's going to be. We'll figure it out. Talk to you then.
Bye.